So today, we have the launch of the 8.1.0 public test build for Dead by Daylight, which is featuring significant balance changes as well as slight reworks to both the Knight and the Singularity, but also including a brand new survivor, Lara Croft, bringing in her own 3 unique perks, which we will get to later. But today I'm going to be running through all of the changes that come through with these patch notes, or at least for this public test build. If they change otherwise after full launch, I cannot say. So in this video, I'm going to be going through every single change, running them over in detail, as well as giving you live footage for visual changes and effects to help you understand exactly what the difference may look like in-game. Hope you guys enjoy. If you want more balance change videos like this, because I personally really enjoy informing people about balance changes like this, do let me know in the comments, and leave a like, and I will be cringe and say subscribe, because that would be great. I would love that, because I always love talking to more people. Alright, let's begin, shall we? So first, starting off with the Knight, he has now gained the ability to manually swap between all of his guards. DevNote says each guard has a specialty, so we've added the ability to choose the right guard for each situation. This will provide a nice boost in power and quality of life. I would agree, having the ability to choose the right guard for the right scenario can make all the difference in properly using the Knight's ability, especially using them in the right scenario that you would wish them to have, instead of just having them on a cycle, and half the time you don't want the one that you really need. Next up on the changes of the patrol paths must be at least 10 meters in length before the guard is able to be dropped. So as you can see in the background footage here, until I have drawn at least a 10 meter long line, I was not able to deploy the guard. Also, they have added a multiplier to guard hunt time based on the total path length. The longer the paths you create will increase the hunt time up to a maximum of 50% longer of the normal duration of said guard, depending on which guard it is because they have varying hunt durations. This means that the longer of a path you create, the longer the duration will be for the hunt itself, regardless of which guard it is. And finally, when the Knight was within 8 meters of his guard, the guard's hunt timer will deplete 3 times faster. DevNote says dropping a guard at your feet in a loop is often the best choice but leaves little counterplay for the survivor, so we've added incentives for longer paths and improved counterplay when someone is being chased by both the Knight and his guard at the same time. Next up, they have swapped the hunt duration as well as the ban respawn time between the Carnifex and the Jailer. If you weren't aware that the Carnifex used to have the longest chase time with 24 seconds, while the Jailer had the largest detection radius. So now, the Carnifex's hunt time is 12 and the Jailer's is 24, while the ban respawn time for the Carnifex is 5, while the Jailer's is 10. DevNote says the Carnifex was previously the best at both breaking things and keeping survivors occupied, making him the best choice for multiple scenarios. We've swapped these hunt times and their associated ban respawn times around, making the Jailer the specialist for patrolling and chasing the longest. This is what I'd prefer because now you have the person that is technically the easiest to initiate a hunt, also having the longest chase time. And pair that with the 50% longer hunt time, you will get a total of a 36-second long hunt, which is pretty wild even if the Jailer is slightly slower. Next up, they have adjusted the breaking time, such as the action to break either generators, doors, or pallets for each guard respectively, and reducing the Carnifexes by only 0.2 seconds, while reducing the breaking time for the Assassin and the Jailer by 1 second down to 5 seconds. On top of that, they have also increased the detection range of each guard by at least 2 meters, bringing the Assassin and the Carnifex up from 8 to 10 meters, while bringing the Jailer from 14 to 16 meters. DevNote says Map of the Realm and Pillaged Mead were fan-favorite add-ons, so we've incorporated some of their effects into the base kit. We've reviewed many of the Knight's add-ons to bring the strongest and weakest add-ons closer together. Now, I don't understand who actually used Pillaged Mead a lot, because I personally only see ever Map of the Realm and Dried Horse Meat for the longer detection radius and longer hunt duration. But hey, whatever you say, game. So one final thing as well that is not listed in the patch notes is now all guards have their own individual cooldown. It is no longer a matter of waiting for the current active guard to either finish its patrol or its hunt until you are able to use the next one. After a guard disappears, it will then go on to a long cooldown, but you will be able to summon the other guards if they are not on their current cooldown. It is also worth noting that if you try to summon in another guard while one is already currently active on the field, it will immediately despawn the other guard and put it onto its cooldown. So, moving on to the Singularity, we are getting a lot of nice changes to make him much more comfortable all around. Starting off, they have added a feature that taking control of a biopod will now cause it to aim at the nearest survivor within line of sight automatically. So if you can see in the background here, when my friend is off screen, it will not auto-lock, but if I switch back to the camera once he is in view, it will automatically start off aiming at him. They've also added that after 0.25 seconds, targeting progress now decays over the next half second rather than disappearing immediately when losing tracking. They've also added that when controlling a biopod, survivors can now only glow if they are able to be targeted. They have decreased the biopod targeting cooldown after successfully slipstreaming a survivor to 3 seconds from 3.5 seconds, and they have improved the UI when using biopods when shooting with the killer. DevNote says the Singularity can be hard to learn but deadly when mastered, so we've made some adjustments to make targeting survivors with biopods easier. These changes won't have a significant effect on those who have already mastered the Singularity. They've also added the ability to manually destroy currently controlled biopods by holding down the attack button while controlling it. They've also enabled the ability so that the killer can now hear all audio by default when controlling a biopod instead of needing the use of an add-on. DevNote says some quality of life improvements. Biopods now have audio without needing an add-on, and you can now destroy a biopod from a distance. Next up, the killer now receives Killer Instinct when a survivor becomes slipstreamed, helping you know where the person is even after you've slipstreamed them, and they've also made it so that the last controlled biopod has its ore revealed in yellow for 10 seconds, which was previously 5 seconds. DevNote says switching between biopods and the Singularity can be disorienting, so we've made some changes to help players get their bearings and find targets. Next up is a huge buff that is very much needed for overclock mode as a default. The Singularity will now gain 3% haste while in overclock mode by default. Next up, they've removed the scaling modifier for overclock depending on the amount of slipstream survivors there are, and have increased overclock space duration by 1 second from 1.7 to 5.7. DevNote says the Soma family photo add-on was much loved, so we've added part of its effects to the base kit. To simplify overclock, we've removed the scaling duration and bumped up the time to 5.7 seconds. Next up, they've added an aim assist effect to shooting a slipstream survivor, and they've also changed and increased an aim assist when creating a biopod. DevNote says when attempting to teleport to a survivor or place a biopod, a slight change could cause your shot to miss or become an invalid spot for a biopod, causing it to do nothing. We've improved the aim assist to linger slightly longer on the last valid place or slipstreamed survivor. Next up, some changes to the EMPs. Passive EMP printing at supply cases will now be limited to 97% at a maximum. The remaining progress must be done manually by a survivor. Supply cases that have reached the passive limit now have their ores revealed in yellow. They have decreased the ore reading range of supply cases to 28 meters plus 32 meters, and they have increased the range of EMPs to 10 meters from 8 meters. They've also decreased the immunity to slipstream after using an EMP from 2 seconds to what says 0.35 seconds but was later changed to 1 second. DevNote says EMPs are an essential tool to playing against the Singularity, but they can be a bit too plentiful at times, making it hard for the killer to use their power. Survivors will now need to spend a little more time to acquire EMPs, and they won't be protected from further slipstreams after using one. We've used new VFX to biopods to let survivors know when a biopod that has been disabled is about to reactivate. After that, we've reduced the time it takes to switch back to the Singularity after controlling a biopod down from 1 second to 0.5 seconds. We've also reduced the time it takes to switch back to the Singularity when near a hooked survivor from 5 seconds to 1.5 seconds, which is a huge reduction. DevNote says since the introduction of the anti-face cam system, this penalty becomes a little redundant as staying near a hooked survivor now carries its own risks. We've reduced this penalty, though accessing biopods next to a hooked survivor still may not be ideal. We've also reduced the base wake-up time, swapping back to the Singularity to feel more responsive. So, now, moving on to the perk changes, we're going to start off with the killer perk changes. First up is Darkness Reveal. Darkness had its aura reveal duration increased from a maximum of 5 seconds to a maximum of 8 seconds. DevNote says with a longer duration, it will be easier to take advantage of the aura reveal and allow this perk to be used more aggressively in a chase. Next up is Machine Learning. They've increased the max duration of Machine Learning from 30 seconds to 60 seconds with a fat double duration increase. DevNote says getting Machine Learning to activate can be tricky, so we've extended its duration to help the killer get value out of it when it does. So for the last few killer perks that are getting changes, I'm just going to give a blanket sweep statement because all of the changes they've received are all identical. The perks I'm All Ears, Trails of Torment, Oppression, and Dragon's Grip have all had their cooldowns cut in half. The devs consistently say that due to their long cooldown, they don't get much use very often in a match, so they've ended up cutting all of their cooldowns in half. So, moving on to the Survivor perk changes. Today we're going to be starting off with Autodidact. Changes being that decreasing the starting skill check penalty from 25% to 15%. DevNote says that Autodidact can become very strong with some luck later in the match, but the large penalty often means you'll do more harm than good. We've toned down this penalty to make it a little more consistent and improve its strength once you've built up your tokens. Personally, I don't see this as needed because there is some benefit to having the bigger negative is that it allows you to build up your stacks easier because you can make the healing duration take longer. But there are ups as well, so depends on the way you want to view it. Next up is Empathic Connection. They've increased the healing speed bonus from 10% to 30%. DevNote says Empathic Connection is great for showing injured survivors where you are, but the healing speed is a bit low. We've increased the speed at which you heal others to 30%. I can agree, 10% was pretty negligible, I would say. Having 30% actually be paired into something that's allowing you to heal others faster as well as more consistently, it needs to at least show its speed a little bit more. Next up, one that we all heard about probably already by now, is Iron Will. Its grunts of pain being reduced are being changed back from 75% to 100%. DevNote says Iron Will already makes survivors fairly quiet, but even the slightest noise can give away your position. We've increased the effects of the perk and reduced the gap between tiers to make lower tiers more useful. Up next is Resurgence. They have increased the healing granted after being unhooked from a maximum of 50% to a maximum of 70%. DevNote says Resurgence is currently a little weak, and since it can only activate twice per match, we have increased the healing it grants. So that is Solidarity. They've increased the healing conversion rate from a maximum of 50% to a maximum of 70%. Solidarity can be a little tricky to use, requiring you to be injured and find another injured survivor to heal. We have increased the conversion rate to make it more impactful when it comes into play. Last of the perks is Babysitter. They've increased the duration of haste and pools of blood hiding from a maximum of 8 seconds to a whopping 30 seconds. Now bear in mind it only says pools of blood, but it actually hides your scratch marks, pools of blood, and gives you an additional 7% haste status effect, which has just now been changed to 10%. DevNote says Babysitter's duration was low, causing it not to provide much value before it ran out. We've extended its duration significantly to make it more impactful. Now that we're done with the perks, we can talk about one last general change, which is allowing the hooks that are destroyed after a survivor has been sacrificed on them to self-repair after 60 seconds. DevNote says with hooks remaining permanently broken, it could create some dead zones where it was impossible to get a survivor to a hook before they could wiggle free. Now when a survivor is sacrificed on a hook, it will automatically repair it after 60 seconds. Now, as a more of a killer main, even I think that this is a little excessive, because it's been 8 years we've lived without it. It's never truly been a big deal, and I've never really had a problem just letting someone bleed out in the ground if I really had to. But let's be perfectly honest, this has never been a defining problem. So I'm sure there'll be some changes to this, but personally I don't think it's necessary. And finally, as a last little note, they've added extra layout variations to the Yamaoka estate maps, as well as the Mount Ormond maps. And finally, to finish everything off, we are going to talk about the brand new survivor being added, Lara Croft, who brings in both herself and 3 new perks. First one being Finesse. This perk activates while you are healthy. Your fast vaults are 20% faster, and this perk goes on a 30-second cooldown after performing a fast vault. Second is Hardened. After you unlock a chest and cleanse or bless a totem, this perk activates. Anytime you would scream, you will instead reveal the killer's aura for 5 seconds. This means you have to unlock a chest and then either cleanse or bless a totem as a second objective in order for the perk to activate permanently. Finally, Specialist. Each time you open or rummage through a chest, gain 1 token, up to a maximum of 3 tokens. When you do a great skill check on a generator, consume all tokens, then for each token consumed, reduce the maximum generator progress by 4. Meaning that if you consume all 3 tokens, it'll permanently reduce the amount of charges required for that generator by 12 charges. So that'll wrap up all of the current patch notes for the public test build in 8.1.0. Now, this is my first time actually doing any of these kind of patch note videos, so let me know what you guys thought of it. If you thought that maybe I could do a little bit more to express just more proper displaying of all the changes happening, or maybe just tone it down a little bit with all the changes, maybe there's too much happening on the screen. So let me know if you guys enjoyed this kind of thing. Because if you do, and people say they like it, I will 100% do more, if not for just every single patch that comes out, if I have the time to do it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I tried to make it quick, even though I spent a lot of time editing this and procrastinated a lot. I will see you guys in the next one.